Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Yesterday, Thomas had a really great interview with Nathan at Lift the Veil. If you had an hour with Trump, what would you say to him?
Can I get one of those Mar-a-Lago burgers delivered?
No, but I don't want anything bloviating. And he is a president, and we want a full honor. But let's just say,
yes.
Let's just say he came into the conclave. What would you guys tell him? And you have an hour, but you can make it shorter.
Oh my! Well, I would have many different answers for this, but we've already written answers because we've written our intelligence reports, and those are what we would tell Trump if we were with him. But we gave him all the evidence so he can give it to his people to carry through on it. So we have done that, but we're going to remind you of what's in that. But I would thank him, and I'd ask him if I could have the honor of praying for him. A friend of mine met him not long ago, and he put his hand on asked Trump if he could put his hand on his heart and pray for him. And Trump said, yeah. So the guy did that. And it's very interesting. I now know a guy a longtime friend of mine who reminded me that Trump funded a play that he did. And his name is Bradford Riley. And Trump funded it in New York when it was there and actually produced it. So Bradford, my friend, Bradford Riley, incredible guy, one of the most brilliant anthroposophists. A play that he did, and his name is Bradford Riley, and Trump funded it in New York when it was there and actually produced it. So Bradford, my friend, Bradford Riley, incredible guy, one of the most brilliant anthroposophists around.
He's going to be very upset that you mentioned him because now he'll be associated with this mess we've created on the internet.
Sorry, Brad.
Bradford Riley has the most amazing blog out there, but you really have to have all cells working to understand it.
That is correct. He's a brilliant person, and I get lots of wonderful ideas from him.
Okay, but now
I had a chat with him the other day.
We're Trump. We wouldn't be chit-chatting.
Bradford knows Trump, so
okay.
I might bring Brad with me,
okay.
and I'd say, Brad, come on now, break the ice with me, with Trump, and then I'd say to Trump, I want to pray for you to make sure that your life and your family's life are protected, because I truly believe we cannot win the Second American Revolution to take back the Republic and conquer the purple George Soros revolution, and unless we have Trump in the White House. I'm quite convinced of that myself. So I would say to him, now, Mr. Trump, I don't have any questions for you. I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for doing what we put on the list. Now, whether you read the list or you didn't, it doesn't matter. We had the same list. And so what was one of the first things on the list? Defund the United Nations in all of its aspects. Well, what did he do? He came out one of the first things, and he put someone in there who fought with him, Nikki Haley, and then they had this thing. I say thank you very much for defunding recently the World Trade Organization, and before that, the World Health Organization, and before that, the United Nations Refugee Program, and soon it will probably be, as we put on our list of 12 things, which is what I would tell Trump. I'd tell him, do these 12 things. Well, he's already started on all of them and has a lot of strategies going behind the scenes. I'm going to reveal one of those strategies to you probably today, which I don't think too many other people have noticed, in that, well, we'll go there in a minute. So I'd say thank you so much for what you did with that. Thank you for sucking China into the IMF, getting them to go gold, and then tricking them, and then not really giving them full status, and degrading their status in the World Trade Organization, where they get all kinds of discounts because they're a developing nation. Oh, really? A developing nation? I don't think so. So Trump has done all those things. What did he also do? He brought the truth about the mainstream media into the light, yes. He's also working on the Fed. And what I believe he's going to do is implied in a bill that has come before the Congress, which is to ascribe a very, very small parcel of gold to every dollar there is. That would mean that he would have a gold back or a gold silver or a gold silver basket of commodities backed US dollar, which would then continue the supremacy of the dollar. We have 87% of the currency in the world. If we back it with gold, it'll go up even higher. And China's wars with us will be undercut. Of course, I would say thank you for ending the insanity of climate accord. Anyway, I'd say to Trump, good. There's a list of 12. He's working on all of them. We suggested to him, and so I would say to him, thank you for doing what we suggested, which is working through the United States Treasury and taking control of that, because that is where all the issues are. Everything comes back to money. So what he has done is beautiful. I could go into great detail. Taking control of the Exchange Stabilization Fund, the Plunge Protection Team, calling out the central banks, and particularly the fake deal that we have of odious debt with the United States Federal Reserve, which is neither United States-owned, federal, or a reserve. So we told him what you should do, and I believe he could very, very likely already be taking actions to do this. Seize the assets that we allow the Fed to hold, audit them, and that's true for the central banks also, because there's all kinds of funny deals going on there. So that, and then basically stop war and get out of Syria, because Damascus is the key to Armageddon from 3 different religions. So get out of that area. Charge people what they're supposed to be charged. Stop letting people gut America. Stop the lie that the United States of America has the right to bomb 7 countries illegally, kill 2 million people, and put the numbers have been adjusted by the UN itself, 68 million people as refugees from Obama's bombing. He was in war every day of his 8 years, and he bombed more than any other president, and he had no congressional approval for it. So bringing back, first off, the very number one thing that we suggested to him, and we would thank him for, is bringing back the rule of law, which was totally lost in the swamp. And also, that whole list that we have there. So I would just thank him because he's doing everything. So whether he just has people who think like we do, or we think like they do, or whatever, he's following through on all of those agendas. And some of the things he's done recently have been far beyond. So then I would thank him for that, and I would whisper in his ear, I think I know what you're doing, Mr. President, with the omnibus bill. And, because we were the first ones to say he's going to use the military on the border. He's going to use the military money because it's an omnibus bill. He can use the money any way he wants. We also pointed out that the money that he saved with the UN, he saved, what was it, $8 billion? Well, that should be put towards the border. There's ways to get that $25 billion. It doesn't matter. People didn't notice that he already used the National Guard and the Corps of Engineers, the Army Corps of Engineers, because Obama made it legal for the Department of Defense to act within our domestic borders. So he took advantage of that, and he built he rebuilt 230 miles of the fence in the border, so it's completely secure. He didn't need a wall there. And now, just the other day, they admitted it. First time I've seen this. We were about the only people who were calling this out. 460 miles of the wall were already finished before he even started the recent thing and got $1.5 billion. So build the wall, correct immigration, but he's done so much more. I would just have to, he wouldn't get a word in edgewise. I would only be complimenting him on the astounding ways that he has messed with these stupid people in Washington and done deals where they ended up being idiots. Like DACA, he made the Democrats look like idiots. With the border, he made the Democrats look like idiots. With the budget, he made the Democrats idiots. With closing of the government, he made the Democrats and the Republicans look like idiots. Everything he is doing is what he said he would do, which is simply call these people out into the light, because their darkness is...
Well, they're not Democrats and Republicans, they're globalists.
Absolutely.
And they work for the globalists, and so that's what you're seeing. You're seeing that being called out.
Thank you, Betsy. First issue that we had was be a nationalist, not a globalist.
Yes.
Get away from the New World Order. Stop
Yes.
George Bush Sr.'s plan, which has been an infection of virus in the White House
You
since.
see, in prior years, they've defined who the teams are. Okay, the teams are the Democrats and the Republicans and the whatever. But what we've done is tried to remind and show people, though, that's not who the teams are. The teams are the globalists and the nationalists, and the ones that want to protect our borders and the ones that want to destroy our borders. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. But now we've also exposed how our government is corrupt, and we can name that shadow government. Okay, people want to write books about the deep state and the shadow government, but they never give it a name. And what Michael McKibben has done for us is given us a tool so we can go in and get the names of these people out of the plum book, and now we can call out who the shadow government is. So the reason I'm saying that is very important to know who your enemy is.
And once I would take him out of the White House, which has glass windows, so everything is surveilled. And I took him into the Rose Garden. If I had an hour, I'd spend part of it in the Rose Garden where I would try to find something that wasn't bugged. And then I would tell him, make sure that he knows exactly who his enemies are. And, I'd be quite frank with him about those things. Now, we have pointed out some of those enemies, and we've written lots of intelligence reports on them. And so we'd go into great detail about who he needs to remove and in what order to make sure that that's who he has on his list to remove, which I don't doubt that he does, but he loves to play them right to the end. Gary Cohen. Cohen. Is that his name? The guy who was the globalist that he played right to the last second. Right to the last second. Right. And he laughed in his face and he said, "You just gave me the keys to the kingdom of corruption of the Goldman Sachs, and I thank you, because without that, I couldn't have done what I'm doing."
But in the meantime, you had these people clutching their pearls going, "Oh my gosh, what is he doing? These people he's surrounding himself are globalists."
John Bolton is the worst international junkyard dog out there. He ranks right up there with Russian mafia oligarchs, okay? This is a guy who will, out one side of his mouth, threaten to bomb you. And the other side, tell the public he's doing a nice deal. He's very corrupt. So Trump put him in a wonderful position. We are in a war with China. People don't seem to know that. Way beyond any war we've actually been in. And now what Trump is doing is he's awakening all of America to the fact that the stock market's fake. It's manufacturing and trade deficits that really are the issue. And also U.S. Treasury bonds. And the debt doesn't matter, you see. The debt is fake. When you can print $4.5 trillion in fiat currency and spend it through the U.S. Federal Reserve in off-book purchases, and there's no record of it, then he can do that anytime he wants. And he's seen this happen. So he knows what he's dealing with. What he's dealing with is the hugest corrupt machine now that you've ever seen, because it's international, but he worked in the huge corrupt machine of New York City, and his whole international experiences with all that he owns in his real estate. So he knows what he's dealing with. And I don't know, if I was to ask him a question, what question would it be? Do you really know, or did you know when you started this, that the mission that you were on was truly the second American Revolution? That's probably what I'd ask him.
Oh, that was perfect segue, because that's what Ron asked, and Ron pays attention to what we're posting, and he said, "What do you consider success in the second American Revolution, and how do we get there so perfectly?"
Well, Ron, those things we just mentioned. Now, that I throw a few other things out there. The Bank for International Settlements needs to be ended. Derivative betting needs to end. We need to put a tax on the New York Stock Exchange and the commodity exchanges. We need not to let international forces or any international money whatsoever work on our stock market and take proceeds from that without paying taxes. We need to end all offshore accounts. There's no need for them. They're all corrupt. That's just tax havens. And we need to tax Americans, particularly, the robber barons and the tech warlords in Silicon Valley. We need to actually make them pay taxes. As we said, and we were harping this for a long time, Jeff Bezos needs to pay his taxes to the U.S. Postal Service. And all those big companies that are now driving our stock market, which is a 1.4 quadrillion tax evasion scheme, just needs to pay taxes each year. There need to be no IRS, and Social Security be funded simply from the taxes from purchases on the New York Stock Exchange.
And of course, I'm assuming that one of the things that you would have discussed with him is the Miller Act.
I would have said, "Mr. President, here's the check. Would you sign this, please? What's it for?" I said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it. We're going to pay someone who had their patent stole, and it will bring down Silicon Valley, and antitrust suits will happen, and RICO suits will happen as an automatic effect of you paying the person whose patent was stolen by James Chandler and the fake patent company, which was ran by IBM and IBM Eclipse Foundation, which stole it. And all of the people in the downstream need to now give that money back to you, Mr. President." And so I would have him sign the Miller Act request, or the Miller Act, the check to Leader Technologies for their stolen patents and intellectual property. And that would cause a ripple throughout the whole world. I'd also say internet is weaponized. You need to stop all of that. And we have clear plans. If you have leader technology, now lead the entire scalability of social networking, then you could take all surveillance out of it, Mr. President, just like you want to do, just like we believe you're doing with Facebook, taking them down, just like we believe you're doing with Amazon, because they collect every speck of information too and sell it, just like we know you're doing with Google. That's the reason Eric Schmidt hightailed it out of here, and no one's heard from him since. So, Mr. President, thank you. And
okay, so more questions. People seem to be, Maggie is, and Martin mentions it too, is about just geoengineering. And when are we going to stop seeing planes flying above our skies, dropping these chemicals?
He doesn't, if he said, somebody step up who's responsible for these chemtrails, do you think a single person in the 4.5 million people in the federal government would step forward and say, yes, sir, that's my job, sir? That isn't the way it works. Look at the planes that are spreading them. Look how certain planes spread huge amounts of them, and then other planes, none, that fly right next to them. Those planes are there to do that. Geoengineering has been going on since the 60s, and it is not the U.S. government in all cases doing it. Even the Doppler weather stations in America, I forget what they're called, there's a special name for them, are owned by outside interests. They can actually create weather. And when you dump stuff in the sky like that, you can change weather by Doppler and many other things. So Trump doesn't probably actually realize he has the power to do so. He would have to ask Jeff Sessions to do an investigation. I think I just coughed up a hairball. Jeff Sessions couldn't investigate whether he had an ingrown toenail, as far as I'm concerned. So it's not going to happen right now. Trump will not be in total control of the White House until the second year of his second term. That's the way it works. That's when Obama did some of his worst evil. Once you're in your second term.
Well, along the same line, Martin asked about the GMOs and the glyphosates and all these chemicals that are in the ground and in the food. He wants to know, what would Trump do about that?
Well, now you might say, I'm going to give the same answer. No, I'm going to give the exact opposite answer. Okay? And this answer nobody's going to like. Trump won't like this answer, but I believe that it's true. This is my opinion. Their faces are stuffed with cheesecake. They don't know what I'm going to say, so they have no response. So here's what I say. I say that there's things you can't stop because there's agencies being created right now inside of agencies that no one even knows. And they have an agenda, and they just keep doing it till someone tells them to stop. Who directs them? Senior executive service members. Who directs them? We assume those 500 Department of Justice lawyers who sit on the Ultimate Review Board, and we assume then they all answer to Jeff Sessions. That's problematic. Anyway, so is Trump going to find out the depth of what all we do in America in the federal government? No, certainly not in the first term. Usually those people, those SCS members, come to him and say, by the way, sir, you've been elected, you have no power. We're going to slow walk, stonewall, anything we want. That's it. You don't really get to do anything. You just go out there with the Easter Bunny and wave at people. And then you go out with the Christmas tree and you greet people from foreign countries and you smile. And that's all you really do. No, Trump has come in. He's taken control of all aspects of the executive. And he doesn't need anybody to help him really, because all the agencies, they do what they want. So he has to work around them anyway.
Well, that's pretty much what Richard asked. He wanted to know about...
Wait, let me go back. I didn't answer the question. I'm not going to say the same thing about GMOs, glyphosates. Here's what I'm going to say. Who's he going after in the pharmaceuticals? He's prioritized it. Sorry about the glyphosates. They create all kinds of cancers, at least 3, 4, 5 types of cancers. 2 types of cancers have been directly linked to GMO corn. And, of course, glyphosates. Glyphosates now has to have a warning on it in many states, particularly California, that overdoses us all with it. So glyphosates and those kind of things, here's the sad reality. Trump needs to get our economy sound. He needs to stop the trade war. We were in a trade war that we had lost, as he just pointed out. I said that for a long time. We lost the trade war a long time ago when Jimmy Carter sold out America through the World Trade Organization, when he lobbied for China to become a member of the WTO, the World Trade Organization. That's why Trump is now calling that out. If you're going to be at a war with China, you have to stop the UN's control of the WTO, the IMF, and the World Bank. That's just the way it has to happen. There's no other way. So that's what's happening. He's dismantling that, and he's going for a gold-backed currency. If that happens, the American dollar is safe for a long time, and all you speculators don't know what you're talking about because you couldn't have calculated Trump or the Trump effect or the Trump deals. So we calculate $16 trillion that I personally, I'm getting nods. Yeah, some of us have calculated $16 trillion that he has saved us, and they want to complain about a budget while they were for the border wall. No. While they weren't watching, he already did almost 500 miles of it, and he got the money. They're too stupid to know. And if they mess with him, he'll simply write up the things of the amendments that they wrote behind closed doors in the Senate for them to get the money they wanted in their districts and their states. And he'll simply put them on a list and say, I'm defunding these. You see, that's why he put in the Holman clause, so he can pay federal employees $1. People don't understand. Between the cuts in the OPM, the Office of Personnel Management, and the United Nations, and the EPA, the Homeland Security, he has saved $39 billion. Okay? So they're giving him a hard time about the money he needs for the border wall. If the border wall goes in, it will save so much money, it will pay for itself in 5 years. And just looking at just welfare that we pay to illegal aliens. Why are we paying welfare to illegal aliens? You're basically encouraging illegal aliens, and you're basically saying that you don't believe in the immigration system that the Congress is in charge of writing laws for. That's the reason he kicked that back to them. So now he made fools of them. So what is happening here? Nobody seems to know. He has them all so discombobulated. What do you do when you do a deal? First, you send out disinformation. Everybody knows this, don't they? Let me just remind people of this. On Wall Street, there's no such thing as a big firm that doesn't have an intelligence agency, and these are cruel ones. As a matter of fact, I just mentioned one of their names. I'm not going to mention their names, but there's a whole bunch of them. Just look it up. We've done entire reports on this. So if you want to go into what is called, it's called corporate espionage, really, but they call it intelligence. Well, Trump was working in all of that. Who do you think he's using? That? Plus, he's getting stuff from people like us and all of you who reiterate it, and then it comes up so people say, hey, did you see this, Mr. President? Did you see that? Did you see how the deep state's been called out by name? They call it the shadow government. It's SES. And do you realize, look at the list here of people who are on it? That's all we need. That's all he needs. And then all he has to do is send certain attorneys from the U.S. Marshal's office. And that's what I've said from the beginning. Plus he uses the military. And so many things are going on that people don't know. So I don't know. I think that he's going to, with GMOs, here's the sad news. He's going to let the economy get stabilized because it had almost been completely taken over with NAFTA, with TPP, TIPP, and all the other trade deals, the Iran trade deal, the Iran nuclear deal, all those deals, what was happening in those countries that had been bombed. He has to stabilize all of that. And he basically has in 1 year and had the best returns economically, militarily, politically, in every way. And now what we're suggesting is as it goes forward and he gets more control of the economy, he will start to say, hey, who sprays that junk in the sky? Get him in my office.
So this is a point where patriots need to take personal responsibility. So you know that conventionally grown things have been irradiated and they've been sprayed with glyphosates. Then go and visit your community, support your community farms, go to the farmers market, make sure you buy organic, do everything that you can protect your family while all of this is unfolding.
And educate yourself. Because if you educate yourself, you can get sad about, let's say, the illnesses created by the radiation going through you. But if you set your house up right, you can antidote a lot of that. Or let's say, as Betsy just pointed out, so there's no enzymes in your food anymore. Have you educated yourself to that? Have you educated yourself to which products on the shelf are GMO? Because if you eat them, it shows with animals that after a very short period of time, you will become sterile.
Now, we do have that. All of that information is on our Ascend diet, and I'm going to put a link to it. It's free, but it helps to educate you on how you'll, keep yourself healthy and well as we're going through this phase of the war.
Trump is focused on the pharmaceutical companies for opioids, and he's doing more for that, for the absolute epidemic that's happening with that. And he's getting out the MS-13, and he's doing all the right things in the right order. People don't understand it. What they don't see is all that's going on behind the scenes. A businessman never tells you what's going on behind the scenes, and they send their intelligence people in first to create chaos in any deal they're going to be in. And they stage things so that then the people you're buying from actually think that their property is worth less so that you can get a better deal. That's the way it works. That's called capitalism. We elected him because he's a capitalist. Thank heavens we have a businessman finally in the White House.